Hello and welcome to Gazette discussion for 15 June 2021. My name is Harsh Singh and we have brought very interesting articles for you in the Gazette discussion today. The first and featured news for today is on deficit financing. Here we will understand what is the meaning of deficit financing, the role of government, RBI, what are the implications of deficit financing, and why is it a necessary evil for us. This day in history is very important for the Right to Information Act. The news snapshots, two updates on news that we have for you today are on rare earth minerals, the concerns of USA and Europe on China. And the second one is regarding mustard oil blending, which has been banned by FSSAI in India. Image of the day relates to an aircraft UAV refueling a fighter aircraft. First time in history. Terms and concepts. The four terms and concepts that we have covered today are EnVision mission, EU's mission to Venus. The second one is a critically endangered species of tree, Pyrostria Laljii, found in Andaman. PASIPHAE Project and how India is related to it. And the fourth one is Operation Oliva, relating to olive ridley turtles. Editorials of the day, very interesting. The first one relates to the fiscal management in terms of the spending capacity of the states in terms of pandemic. And the second one is updates on G7 summit and India's participation in the same. Case study of the day relates to an inspiring lady who has started an organization called as Prayas to help students get educated free of cost. Let's begin. The featured news and the first article for today is on deficit financing. This article relates to economy of India, government policies, and Reserve Bank of India. This is a very important time and critical time for the government because its revenues are decreasing, its income is decreasing, yet the expenditures are high because of COVID emergency times. The government has declared that it needs to borrow 12 trillion rupees in this current fiscal year. Then how will it get this money? There are various mechanisms to generate this income. First, it can raise taxes, right? But will it help? Taxes raise will not help. Borrowing of money, this is one mechanism. And the third mechanism is monetization. So we are getting into a little background because this will help us understand the article, right? So what is monetization? Monetization is done through two means where money is given to the government. The first direct monetization is direct printing of money and putting in the market, direct printing by RBI. And the second mechanism is through OMO, right? OMO is open market operations where the government puts in its government securities, bond, right? It puts in securities in the market and it is purchased by bodies, privates, corporates, RBI, and they give money to the government. So the RBI governor, ex-RBI governor has said that it is better to get into other mechanisms rather than direct monetization, rather than direct printing of the money. Other mechanisms could be the accommodative stance of the RBI. For example, if we reduce the lending rates of the RBI, repo rate, etc., then there'll be increased amount of inflow, increased liquidity in the market, right? Liquidity will be high. So these are the measures recommended as of now. Why? We will study in the article that the direct printing of money is inflationary and it has its own disadvantages. So let's get into the article. We just understood what are the accommodative stance by, for example, using OMO, for example, reducing the lending rates, right? These are the accommodative stance for now. The government, the RBI has also said that it will participate in the GSAP 2.0 government securities acquisition plan, right? Now, government will release the securities in the market, right? The bonds in the market, so that bonds are purchased, right? Government will get the amount to spend and the bonds are kept by the corporates or RBI, right? So when the RBI conducted its GSAP 1, it introduced 25,000 rupees in the market with the help of government, right? So it has also said that it will conduct the secondary market purchase, GSAP 2.0. It will also have to print some money, 2.2 trillion rupees here, right? So these are the mechanisms. We just discussed what are the ways government could monetize its deficit, right? So the ideal way is to raise taxes, borrow, and monetize, and they have all got their disadvantages as well, right? Now, so what happens during these times when the government borrows from RBI? It transfers its securities, the bonds, right, to the bank, and the bank issues more currency. Okay, and this is what explains how the money is transferred, right? Now the government passes on the money to the bank, and then they are distributed among other stakeholders. So monetization has its own deficits, right? But still it is used as an important tool. Why? Because see, these are developing times for important developing countries like India. If we need to finance important projects in capital, for example, infrastructure, health, education, we have to finance deficits, right? Even if we have less money, we have to finance, we have to take loans. So therefore, it is inevitable in developing countries to have these kind of monetization schemes. Second one is crisis management. During the times of COVID, it is important. Even if we have less money with the government, we will have to take loans and manage this crisis. So it is important. Capital formation. It helps in formation of capital. Capital means money, money for the longer term, right? It helps formation of liquid money by using these instruments. Cost-free method. Now see, if government is taking loan from USA or IMF, these are external means. But if government is taking money from RBI, right? RBI is the one in which has the government securities. So first of all, it remains as a domestic lending, and second of all, this is somehow later re-incurred in terms of interest payments, etc. In terms of profit that the government gains in the process, right? So it overall remains as a domestic lending only, right? Good inflation. Now this also leads to good inflation. There is a certain amount of inflation which is mandatory and it is good for everybody. It leads to raising of the GDP. It leads to raising of income standards of people, right? So certain good amount of inflation is important through this, but there are issues with it, right? So in case there is inflation beyond control, it leads to high inflation rates, and which is detrimental to countries like us only. Why? Because of huge amount of poor population and marginal population in our country, right? Now this discourages investment. How does it discourage investment? Now if there is more deficit in the economy, will people want to invest in an economy like this? Will there be FDIs inflows? No, right? So this is how it will discourage investment. It will also lead to certain imbalances in the economic system, right? Debt GDP ratio will increase. If the debt increases, we will become like those PIGS countries like Portugal, Ireland, Greece, Spain, right? So therefore, the debt needs to be lowered, right? A debt cannot go beyond a certain limit. And that is why the internal debt, not the external debt, internal debt, the one taken by RBI is a better means to finance, right? Fiscal discipline. Will we maintain fiscal discipline? No. In case of this, we are maintaining fiscal liberalism if we are printing more money or taking more money, financing the projects, right? Lowering savings, right? Now it will lower savings for everybody here in the whole process because there'll be more tendency on expenditure, right? Now, independence of RBI. If the government is asking RBI to print money, if the government is asking RBI to participate in the GSAP operations, then RBI's independence, autonomy will be violated because RBI did not want to initially probably participate in the release of money or printing of money. However, government wants to do this. So therefore, independent policies of RBI will be questioned, right? RBI won't be in driver's seat. It will be the government, and therefore it will erode the credibility of the central bank, also of the government. See, that is why it is a tough position for the government, because government needs to increase spendings. It has to spend for hospital management, for the people who have migrated to their homes and they don't have food resources, right? So the government has to participate in multiple ways and RBI will have to support, and that is what it is doing, right? So these are the cost and benefit analysis of this article, right? There'll be collateral damage. If the government is spending extra in a particular sector, will the private sector be encouraged to spend in that particular sector? No. And that is what is called as crowding out, right? If the government is spending extra in a particular sector, right, the private sector and other bodies will be disincentivized to invest in that particular sector, right? So therefore, when an article like this comes into play, right, you have to balance both the sides, right? You have to balance choosing the stand, right? If the article is about how the government should be doing it, then support these measures. If they have to talk about critical issues, then talk about these sides, right? Therefore, this deficit financing is a necessary evil, right? It has to be managed very well, and this is what the ex-governor also said. Right now we don't need to print money. All we need to do is manage through different mechanisms. For example, open market operations. For example, we must go to in the secondary market, OMO, and we could also get into the relaxing of the certain measures like the interest rate, repo rate, etc. These were the measures. So let's quickly look into the summarize this article again, and this is where you will note down the keywords, right? Note down the keyword GSAP 2. GSAP 1 was 25,000 crores, right? And the government needs to borrow 12 trillion rupees, right? These are important keywords here. Then you must note down issues here. The first of all, advantages here. The ones, for example, inevitability of the developing countries, crisis management. These are the needs for deficit financing, capital formation, cost free method, good inflation. These are some of the important necessary things which are component of deficit financing. What are the issues? Inflation, discouraging investments. 2, debt GDP ratio gets high, fiscal discipline is not maintained, lower savings, and RBI independence is compromised, right? It also erodes the credibility. Good phrase, right? Collateral damage, for example, crowding out. So just mention these keywords and your article is done. It is a necessary evil. This is the conclusion of the article, right? So this is how this article is structured. Moving ahead, this day in history about Right to Information Act. This is the day when the assent to Right to Information Act was given in the year 2005 by ex-President APJ Abdul Kalam, right? The article talks that there is transparency and more accountability in the functions of the government because of Right to Information Act. And Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, MKSS, was one of the important role players in initiation of this act. New snapshot. The first snapshot is on rare earth metals. Now, rare earth metals are mostly brought in around the world from China. China is the major producer of these metals. And during the times of COVID, there is a crisis. The crisis relates to one, stay-at-home economy. Stay-at-home economy. We discussed this in the previous featured articles, right? So what is stay-at-home economy? Many countries have said people stay at home and factories won't run, but this is where dependence on China has increased, especially for rare earth metals. And secondly, the chip lead time. Now see, the China is a dominant player in case of rare earth metals. They're very important metals because they're used in very critical sectors. For example, space sector, designing of satellites, electric cars, wind turbines, magnets, smartphone, computer screens, telescopes, etc. Right? Because they have some very specific and good properties. So China is the leader here, manufacturing and exporting as much as 90%, 85% to America and European Union. And therefore, these countries have raised eyebrows against China. Chip lead time has increased. What is chip lead time? Chip lead time means the time in which I have ordered for a chip and I get it back, right? So this is what the crisis is about. And there's an urgency of having semiconductors. A lot of industries, for example, vehicle industry, electric car industry, smartphones, they are falling short of the supply of semiconductors, right? And there is a high dependence. As I said, 80% of US chips are imported from China, and European Union almost 98%, right? And therefore, this rare earth mineral market is an emerging market for China, and China has got monopoly in this market, right? Now, important places where it is produced is China, also India. India is one of the major producers, Russia, Southeast Asia, and Brazil. Emerging places could be China, America, Australia. However, these have not come into play. The market, the main market from where it is exported is China, right? Now, this is an expensive job and it is also hazardous because it leads to acid leaching. And therefore, many countries avoided this procedure of working on the rare earth minerals, right? So these are some particular elements from the periodic table, right? And these are the rare earth metals. They do not occur in free state. First of all, one must note that they are not rare. They are found on earth. However, they are found in traces at various places. The existence is there, but since they are found in traces and they are found at places where the their excavation and finding is tough, and therefore they are called as rare earth minerals. They're also found in India. Note that these minerals are found and they are utilized for very, very expensive and high-end technical works. India is fifth largest reserve for these rare earth minerals, but we have not exploited that potential as of now. One of the important sources is the beach sand, right, where we find certain important minerals, right? And therefore mineral exploration is happening in India as well. So please note down China's monopoly, right? One, high dependence on China and semiconductor industry. Note down chip lead time, the keyword here. Another keyword, stay at home economy, right? Go ahead and understand the utility of these rare earth minerals and with relevance to India as well. The second snapshot is on mustard oil blending, which has been banned in India by FSSAI. Now, this has certain background. Earlier, mustard was allowed to be blended, right? There were reasons for that. Blending of mustard helped in increasing of nutrition value. This is one reason. It would help in increasing of the taste and quality of the product. Also, since mustard was expensive, therefore, people would adulterate it, and then adulteration would cause a drop in the price and people would purchase this kind of mustard. However, if blending is done, then the rates also decrease and people purchase better products. So it also avoided some kind of epidemic in local areas. So therefore, blending was done. What did it lead to? It led to higher blending, right? Cheaper palm oil was being used, and as much as 80% of it was blended with less of mustard oil. This led to the decrease in mustard farming, right? This led to decrease in the quality of mustard. It led to increase in the import of the oil. Why? Because there was decreased amount of revenue generation from India itself. Farmers were not incentivized. So oil imports, mustard imports also increased, right? And there was decrease in production. In fact, there was a lot of import of palm oil, and it was also given less duty to import, right? And now the government has said we will stop the blending of mustard, right? Why? It has said that blending of two oils is fine, right? But the content should not be less than 20% of blending. Why? Because sometimes, see, if virgin oil which is imported is blended with X oil, another oil, X oil, the marketers will say they have blended it, but the amount of virgin oil used is hardly 5%. But marketers will use this strategy. So therefore, the government has said blending should be at least 20%. This is one for other oils. Now, it has also said that this will ensure the purity and safety of the mustard oil. Mustard oil is an important component for the food and for rejuvenation, nutrition purposes as well. It will help in retaining the purity and safety of this oil. It will also increase the area, right? Because there will be more demand of mustard now, less blending, and therefore it will increase the sowing area. See, mustard is a dry land crop. It will help in promotion of the dry land agriculture also. So it is a holistic way in which government is trying to help the farmers grow this crop, right? It will decrease the import also of this edible oil, right? So these are the various things, and you must note down what has been the impact of blending. First of all, cheaper oil has been introduced, right? Import has risen, and import of other oil and mustard as well, and there has been an increase in the palm oil import because of the blending, right? Although it led to increase in nutrition at certain level and help in lesser adulteration, yet now we are increasing our standards. FSSAI has said purity is important, safety is important, right? And it will increase sowing area. So write down these keywords: purity, safety, sowing area, right? And this is the completion of this article. Image of the day. We see a very interesting picture. This is the first time that refueling in the air has been done by a UAV, unmanned air vehicle. This air vehicle is not being flown by a pilot seated here. It has been flown at a remote location, from a remote location, and this is an American fighter plane, F-18, and this fighter plane is being refueled by this UAV. This is what is the article about. Read it. Interesting one. Terms and concept. The first term and concept is EnVision mission, right? This is a mission of European Space Agency, and it has initiated this mission to take its flight to the planet Venus. Venus is an important planet because it is considered to be the twin of Earth. They have similar size and they have similar density and proportion, right? Although the elements in the planets are different. Venus is also the second closest planet to Sun. However, it is the hottest planet. You know why? Mercury is not the hottest planet. It is Venus. Venus is the hottest because it has got a very dense, thick covering of carbon dioxide in its atmosphere. And this is what interests the scientists. They want to know what has been the origin of this carbon dioxide, why such a dense atmosphere, and they want to know if there was life which ever existed on Venus, or if there was water which ever existed in this planet, right? Venus was the first planet that scientists tried to study. It was not Mars, it was Venus, because it was closer. However, when they realized that carbon dioxide is in excess, they moved to other planets, for example Mars. They also went to Moon. Okay, now earlier we have also studied in the earlier articles, earlier terms and concepts. If you have been watching videos, we discussed Da Vinci and Veritas, right? These were NASA's projects to Venus, right? Earlier there was a project named Venus Express by European agency itself. The second term and concept in news is Pyrostria Laljii. Laljii is the person who was one of the administrators in the government of India, and that is why this species has been named on him, on Laljii. Now, this is what is this? This is a tree species. It grows 15 meters tall. It has been found in Andaman Nicobar this time. This is originally a species found in Madagascar, and it is critically endangered, right, in the IUCN Red List. Now, this name very important for UPSC exam. PASIPHAE Project. This is a space project which relates to polar area stellar imaging in polarization high accuracy experiment, right? So this is the full form of this. Now, the main thing to note about is that this project is also being assisted by India. The main idea is to understand universe and to survey the sky, right? Scientists have always wondered what has been the origin of universe. Now, various radiations keep coming to the earth. For example, cosmic microwave background, right? This is one of the primitive radiations which were emitted after the Big Bang explosion. So the radiations keep coming to earth and various spaces, and some of them are polarized, right? Polarized means the frequency, the vibration of this light particle will be in certain direction only. It will be polarized. It will not be vibrating in all directions, right? How does it happen? It happens when the light particle strikes certain elements, for example dust, for example the smoke, certain particles, it will get polarized. So this experiment is going to study the polarized particles. This is the simplest way I could explain it, right? South Africa and Greece are two places where this study will be carried out, right? And drawing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy is one important thing that will assist. If we draw a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, we'll be able to understand from which directions this polarized wave is coming. And if we understand the direction, we can also understand what are the elements which are there, which are causing the polarization of these waves. What is India's participation? India is helping in creation of wide area linear optical polarimeter, VALOP, right? By the organization IUCAA, which is in Pune, right? So this is India's contribution, and therefore it becomes important for UPSC exam also. Now, Pasiphae is the daughter of the Greek god. Therefore, this name as well, there is a full form as well. As I said, polar area stellar imaging in polarization high accuracy experiment, right? Okay, moving ahead. Operation Oliva. What is the operation related to? It is related to our own olive ridley turtles. The operation is conducted by Indian Coast Guard to protect the olive ridley turtles, right? These are the images where we can see the officers trying to help the olive ridley turtles, right? Now, we must understand that these olive ridley are important for India. Why? Because they conduct something like Ariba. These are the mass nesting grounds. Aribada. Aribada are the mass nesting grounds. And India in Odisha, we have got three mass nesting grounds. One of them is Gahir Matha, the other one is Rushikulia River mouth, and the other one is Devi River mouth. These are the three places where mass nesting happens, and therefore India needs to protect this, right? These ridley turtles, they travel long distances to come to the places where they themselves were born, right? In the Odisha coast, for example, and this is where they breed. They breed as many as 150 to one of the mother lays 150 to 200 eggs, right? And 7 to 10 weeks they hatch, and after that the small turtles, they get back into the water, and they come later when they have to breed. They also come back to the same coast. This is a unique style of laying eggs, right? And therefore these particular coasts become very, very important. Preserving them is very important. The most vulnerable species, these are very vulnerable because their nesting is happening at only specific places, and therefore certain important things like poaching must be avoided, right? Now, animals poaching by humans, then animals also are predators, for example dogs, etc. This must be avoided, right? And the sand beaches, they must be preserved. Erosion must not happen at these areas. Therefore this will help in surviving of these species like olive ridley. Now, it is also said that as much as 1 in 1000. This is the only proportion. Out of 1000 born olive ridley, only one survives till adulthood. So therefore, preserving them is very important. They are considered as vulnerable, although high in population, but they are considered vulnerable. Editorials of the day. The first editorial is on fiscal prudence. Is fiscal prudence important? Is saving of the money important, or is spending important in these pandemic year time? The article focuses on the states of the India which have got decreased revenue, and they must in these times increase their expenditure. However, many of them are not doing so. Right, during the second wave of corona, there has been a decreased expenditure by the market, but the government must increase its expenditure. In the threat of third wave, there is a decreased expenditure as well, but the government must try to increase the expenditure, although the states are not doing it, and this is the requirement of the time. The article talks about 12 high income states and the 6 low income states. The income states are divided based on the gross state domestic product, right? And it says that many of them have incurred the lesser revenue, and their capital expenditure has not risen, although they have taken loans, right? But they have capital receipts are more, but expenditure has not risen. Expenditure must rise, right? So when the state does not receive revenues, it will start to take loans, capital receipts, right? They have taken loans, however their expenditure has not risen. For example, Haryana, improved states where there is good fiscal discipline, if they don't spend, then it will be important for the government to understand that there must be increased spending. Also, the subsidy at various levels has gotten decreased. What will the government do with this money? Although they will maintain fiscal discipline and prudence, but if people are not help in these times, then what will happen to the social development of the country? So this is the focus of this article, important article. The second article for today is about G7 summit and India's participation in it, right? A brief background of G7. G7 is an association of economies which has the most advanced countries in its wealthiest democracies, and they are called as coalition of democracy, right? So important countries which are a part of it are America, Canada, Italy, Japan, Germany, UK, and France. These are the 7 countries, and certain important countries are also called in the meeting. For example, India was called this time. India was also called previously as well, right? They call themselves the coalition of democracy, and this time they have met, and majorly to counter China's dominance, right? G7's importance was that these countries had a lot of production. The GDP of these countries, 60% wealth they had, and 40% GDP of the world, and only 10% population, right? However, their significance dropped after the 2008 global crisis because the importance of G20 increased. The emerging economies improved, but China has dominated G20, and therefore G7, along with some important role players, for example, India, South Africa, South Korea, Australia, these countries were also called in this meeting, right? And they majorly focused about how they have to counter China, right? China's economic development and its domination in the market. The BRI corridor, right? BRI corridor, the times of COVID, right? The global supply chain, China is dominating. The Hong Kong issue, the issue with Taiwan, South China Sea, these are the engagements that these countries are trying to counter, right? The article also talks about India and its domestic policies where human rights issues have happened. China is being countered in terms of human rights issues as well. So the article says that India also domestic human rights issues have come into fore by these countries itself, by USA, UK. However, they are not as important as the global issues. And therefore, the challenges of digital technology, radicalization, disinformation, they have also to be met along with in this G7 summit. So this was the summit about. Case study of the day. The case study of the day is about a lady who has helped and shown the way for a lot of people. Beena Rao, inspired by her father, who helped the blind children. This lady has started an organization called as Prayas, helping students in free coaching, and she has collected a lot of people in Gujarat at Surat in doing this noble work. She's self-inspired, and with the help of this, she's trying to give holistic education to children, moral education, extracurricular activities, yoga, etc. Right? She says that people look for God. My God is in children. Right? So this is a beautiful article. Please note down her name and the name of the organization. You can use it while you write good answers. Thank you for watching.